November 17, 2020. An omnibus motion is due.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
In addition to that, Mr. Chair, again, omnibus motion, I move for the adoption of the said journal of proceedings.
Second. Any objection? Having none, the proceedings are hereby adopted.
Under the first reading and files, communications and information, item 1, from the city manager, address the city vice mayor, and the honorable mayor of the Samana Consort, letter dated March 9, 2021, requesting for a resolution authorizing the city mayor to sign and enter into a memorandum of understanding with National Nutrition Council for the implementation of Fruto Plan, the rental program in the city of Koronadal. Attachment and overview.
This item is referred to the Committee on Health.
Item 2, letter dated March 16, 2021, submitting for legislative authorization, general fund, and special account, fund year 2021 to national budget number 2, is appropriates the amount of 99,281,127 pesos and 20 centavos for personal services, maintenance, and other operating expenses, and property, plant, and equipment, and further requested to come out resolution.
This item is referred to the Committee on Finance.
The Honorable Cherry Marmonemo, Punong Barangay, Barangay Rotonda, under the City Vice Mayor and the Consort, that is March 9, 2021, submitting to Barangay Ordinance number 1, 2021, ordinance requiring persons within Barangay Rotonda, Coronadal City, to keep and maintain a clean and green environment.
This item is referred to the Committee on Barangay Affairs.
Item 4, City Mayor, address the City Vice Mayor and the Honorable Mayor of the Samana Consort, letter dated March 16, 2021, endorsing the application for preliminary subdivision development plan of Garden 32 residences subdivision project under PD 957 of Happy Living Realty and Development Corporation, represented by Ms. Maria Henrietta C. Udetenia, to be at Purong Pag-asa, Barangay Mayor of the city for appropriating the city action. Another letter dated March 18, 2021, endorsing the application for subdivision of lot 272-8-3-3, PSC-12-06-7097, represented by Ms. Ellen May Liberawi, located at Purong Masipag, Barangay Santa Cruz, City for appropriating the city action. And letter dated March 18, 2021, endorsing the application for subdivision of lot 150-A-2-3-1, GSC-12-004-390, owned by Ms. Susana T. Necesito, located at Purong Tagumpay, Barangay Rapolong, Santos City for application.
This item is referred to the Committee on Housing and Land Use.
Item 5, Health Officer, address the Vice Mayor and the Honorable Mayor of Samana Consort. The letter dated March 22, 2021, submitting for review the following appropriation ordinances. Appropriation ordinance number 4 is 2020 and one budget 2021 of Bernardo Zone 1, City of Koronadal, in the amount of 6,752,672 pesos. And appropriation ordinance number 4 is 2020 annual budget 2021 for Barangay Rotonda, in the amount of 4,694,020 pesos.
This item is referred to the Committee on Finance.
And the committee reports, item 1, Committee on Barangay Affairs, item 1.2 and 1.1 to 1.2.
Let us hear the report of Honorable Gregorio Presca, Committee on Barangay Affairs.
Good afternoon to the member of this August body, first to our presiding officer, Honorable Peter William. This committee report is coming from Committee on Barangay Affairs. The subject of this report is the review of Barangay Ordinance number 1, series of 2021, entitled An Ordinance Providing Loyalty Service, Cash Incentives to all barangay workers, volunteers who rendered at least 15 years and above of service. Findings and observations. Number one, endorsed this committee for a review. For review is Barangay Ordinance number 1, series of 2021 of Barangay Sultry, City of Koronadal. Number 2, the legal office sent their written legal opinion regarding the subject ordinance and observed that section 3 definition, Barangay volunteers worker in the ordinance clearly refers to individuals who voluntarily render primary social services in Barangay Sultry. However, not all enumerated workers render primary social services. 3. Only 4 seats of workers are rendering primary social services. These are the barangay health workers, BHW, barangay nutrition scholars, BNS, and barangay peacekeeping action team, BPATS. Number 4, the remaining set of workers are considered as job order, which refers to the hiring of a worker for a piece of work and intermittent job of short duration not exceeding 6 months. 5, a provision stating that the availment of discussed incentives shall be subject to the usual government accounting and auditing procedures needs to include it. 6, the implementation of the said ordinance will begin next year and it's depending on the availability of funds as manifested by the proponent. And number 7, after the review, the committee observed the inconsistency of some provisions with the title, which the proponent agreed to the amendments recommended by the resource person and the committee members and the subject ordinance. Recommendations. The committee recommends to refer back to the Barangay Ordinance number 1, series of 2021, entitled an ordinance providing cash incentives to all barangay workers, volunteers, who render at least 15 years and above of service for retirement. And number 2, finally, the committee recommends for the adoption of the recommendation duly mentioned in this report. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Any objection? Hearing none, motion is approved.
Mr. Chairman, another committee report.
Proceed with the committee report.
This committee report is from Committee on Barangay Affairs. The subject of this report is the review of an ordinance number 3, series of 2020, entitled an ordinance creating barangay position of barangay government of Sultry, Koronadal City. Findings and observations. Number 1, endorsed to this committee for review is Barangay Ordinance number 3, series of 2020 of Barangay Sultry, City of Koronadal. 2, the legal office sent a written legal opinion regarding the subject ordinance and direct the attention of the proponent barangay to the pertinent provisions of the Department of Budget and Management Local Budget Circular number 2009-92 for proper guidance. And also observe the inconsistency between Section 2 honorarium and the Bill 5 on appointments. Section 2 must be reconciled with Section 6 on funding support as to the position falling under regular or plantilla of barangay government. While Section 2 mentions only administrative assistant, Section 5 mentions administrative assistants and accounting clerk. And there's a need for provision on the salary grades of plantilla positions. Number 3, the barangay position stated in the subject ordinance did not coincide with the position listed in the DBM circular number 2009-92, which the committee questioned how they came up with the position. 4, as manifested by the resource person, Mr. Ryan Gomez, Ms. Hazel Libanan, and Ms. Emma Antenorio, as they read the manual, the local government code, particularly on the barangay personnel, the barangay is allowed to create a position but subject to the limitation of 55% personal services and subject upon availability of funds, and not exceeding to the positions and minimum of the salary grade given by the BPM. And number 5, after the review of DBM circular number 2009-92 3.3, the proponent barangay manifested that their barangay is incapable to provide a salary grade to their stated plantilla position. In the subject ordinance in which the committee suggested to focus in the position which the barangay can afford to defray a lower salary grade and can perform generic duty and support to the immediate need and operation of the barangay. Recommendations. The committee recommends to refer back the Barangay Ordinance Number 3 Series of 2020 entitled An Ordinance Creating Barangay Position of Barangay Government of Zone 3, Koronadal City for refinement. And finally, Mr. Chair, the committee recommends for the adoption of the recommendation duly mentioned in this report. I so move, Mr. Chairman.
Any objection? Being none, the report is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Item 2, Committee on Housing and Youth, item 2.1.
Let us hear the report of Honorable Edwin Abrace under the Committee on Housing and Land Use.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of this August body, good afternoon. To our presiding officer, good afternoon also. Presenting to you the report of the Committee on Housing and Land Use. The subject of this report is the submitted City Development Council Resolution Number 1, Series of 2021, entitled "The Resolution Endorsing the Request for Rezoning of Lots Owned by Chu and Bautista Families from Residential to Commercial Use to the Sangguniang Canon Zone." Findings and observations. Attached to the CDC resolution were the resolutions also from the CDC institutional sector and the local zoning review committee. All are endorsing favorably the request for rezoning of Chu and Bautista families of properties along the national highway. Second, Chu family represented by Mr. Junicius Balen R. Chu had submitted the letter of intent requesting the city government of Koronadal for the rezoning of their lands from residential to commercial use. Third, the said parcel of lands had a total land area of 82,859 square meters, more or less, and located at Purok Silangan, Barangay Santo Niño, City of Condal, with the zoning classification pursuant to the zoning ordinance number 6, series of 2015, now to it. It consists actually of three title properties. First is lot 54-A with PSD 11025718, having an area of 40,000 square meter. It is actually under the name of Chukim Enterprises. 12,998 square meter there, of that property is within commercial 2 district, particularly fronting the national highway with 100 meters depth. And the remaining 27,002 square meter are within the residential district. The second lot is lot 54-B with an area of 17,265 square meter under the name of CKG or Chukim Group Distribution, which is actually under the residential district. The third lot is lot 54-C, having an area of 1,456 square meter in the name of Mutiny. It is actually classified under infrastructure and utilities district. Then the fourth lot is lot 54-D with an area of 24,138 square meter under the name of Soft Artifact Incorporated, a sister company of Chukim Enterprises Incorporated also. This is under residential district. Fourth, the Bautista family, represented by Ms. Corazon D. Ortigosa and Mr. Eduardo D. Bautista, had also submitted their intent requesting for the rezoning of their lots from residential to commercial use. The said parcel of land had a total land area of 74,367 square meter, more or less, and also located at Purok Silangan, Barangay Santo Niño of Condal, with a zoning classification pursuant to zoning ordinance number 6, series of 2015 to it. It only consists of one lot, which is lot 55, PLS-246-D, case number 2, with an area of 74,367 square meters. It is under the name of Militon Bautista, and the zoning classification is 12,992 square meters of that property is within commercial 2 district, particularly fronting the national highway with 100 meters depth. And the remaining and the 1,238 square square meter. Traversing the said area is within the infrastructure in utilities district, more particularly the portion that traversed by the Via Canal and the service road. And the remaining 60,137 square meter is within the residential district. The lots subject for rezoning are only those classified within the residential district, with a total area of 68,405 square meter that is on the Chu family, and 60,137 square meter on the Bautista site, respectively. The said properties owned by Chu and Bautista families are being negotiated to be acquired by SM Prime Holdings Incorporated for commercial purposes. 8. The said properties are situated along the National Highway and within the delineated urban core of the city of Koronadal as per comprehensive land use plan of the city, wherein agglomeration of socio-economic development is highly anticipated. 9. The emergence of institutional and economic facilities within the vicinity of the area, such as the hospital, government and commercial establishment, is evident that the area is now gradually forming a cluster of the projected development. The establishment of SM will boost more development in the area, which will generate economic prosperity and open up more opportunities for the constituents of the city of Koronadal. 11. As part of the requirement in amending the zoning ordinance, a public hearing was conducted last March 12, 2021 at the SB conference room. During the public hearing, the representatives of the two families were present. The Barangay Council were also present. The members of the local zoning review committee and several neighboring lot owners, including the tenants of the Bautista family, and there are also from private sectors who were also present during the public hearing. Everyone in the public hearing were optimistic and excited in the possible development in the said area, and there was no dissenting opinion in the proposed rezoning of the subject properties. Recommendation of the committee. The committee unanimously and favorably recommends to the Sangguniang Panunsod to approve the request of Chu and Bautista families for the rezoning of their lands located at Silang, Barangay Santo Niño, along the National Highway, which are classified within the residential district into commercial use. Further, the committee recommends to validate the disposition of the attached resolution on the second reading in today's regular session under unsigned business. Finally, the committee recommends for the adoption of this report. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Any clarification? The chair would like to inquire about the presence of this infra utilities area. Is this a public road or a irrigation system?
This is actually an irrigation canal, Mr. Chair, with a service road.
And the area is not isn't it? It's an agricultural area.
No, Mr. Chair, based on our zoning ordinance, this is already classified as residential zone.
It's already classified as residential zone. This bothers me since the simple principle I've learned is that any agricultural land like rice fields with the irrigation is considered as prime agricultural area, and they're therefore gonna be changed to whatever the zoning classification, whether it's residential or commercial. So that's my question. How come it was reclassified as residential, wherein it's a prime agricultural area?
Well, the basic principle, Mr. Chair, any properties traversed by a near irrigation are supposedly classified as prime agricultural zone. Then, based on the SACDC law or this Special Agricultural and Fisheries Zone law, supposedly this area classified as prime agricultural area should not be subjected for reclassification. However, the basis also of the comprehensive land use planning and the adoption of and approval of the zoning ordinance is also based on the principle of sub-DC. However, it is also basing in the actual use of the properties. Now, those were actually the consideration during the inspection and the actual use of the property when we approved our zoning ordinance way back in 2015, that area was placed under residential zone because of actual use and the possible development. Now, you have to get actually clearance also from the NIA before you can do this. Now, I suppose, Mr. Chair, that when we passed our comprehensive land use plan in 2015 and our zoning ordinance in 2015, we have met the requirement for us to reclassify the said area to be under residential zone. Because
So,
if not,
you mean this classification as residential was done during our 2015 CLUP?
yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
And this CLUP and our zoning ordinance has passed through the scrutiny also of the law, the Provincial Land Use Committee, which part of that is also the representative of NAR.
Okay, so it went through the tedious process of reclassification from agricultural to residential.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And so it seems that these lots owned by Bautista and Chukin family is in a way side by side in this location with each other.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is in front, basically in front of Ala Valley Hospital.
And I observed there are so many commercial establishments lining up in this area. So how about those who are in these times, development is very fast coming into our place. Is there any possibility that we will classify this whole area here as commercial so that landowners can enjoy also the benefit of opportunity to do business?
Well, basically, Mr. Chair, that observation uh, was brought out during the public hearing, and this concern was raised also by the Barangay Council of Barangay Santo Niño, where they intimated that the portion from crossing Barangay Santo Niño going towards crossing Barangay Concepcion, supposedly the development will be more robust in the coming years, Mr. Chair. And they wanted actually that the same be classified also as commercial. However, what we only took up, Mr. Chair, is the requested properties. The other properties not covered by the request can be taken up during the revision also of our zoning ordinance and CLUP, which is actually happening this year. And
So that's good to hear. So we plan to have a revision of our CLUB in this 2021.
yes, Mr. Chair, the process already started, and the planning office have already started the orientation as well as the briefing, Mr. Chair. They will be proceeding with the barangays also for consultation.
In the event, it's in your report that the SM Holdings are pursuing this parcel of land. And what about what will happen to this in front at the back? The irrigation as well as the road beside the irrigation line canal.
This will not be actually condemned, Mr. Chair. This will still be in service to the other areas because we could not condemn it because there are other areas which actually is being serviced by that NIA canal. And this is not also subject to our rezoning.
But we had the previous practice, the rezoning would come after a subdivision plan laid down to this council prior to the reclassification, zoning reclassification. Are you aware of any plans by SM or the owners of Bautista or the Bautistas and the two having this developmental plan prior to this zoning classification?
Well, this is actually one of a kind, Mr. Chair. Supposedly, the landowner or the property owner will apply for rezoning or reclassification or even exemption on the in the zoning ordinance, Mr. Chair. When they presented already the development, the proposed development of the area. Now, in this case, this is unique because the property owners are not the one who is going to develop, but this property is subject to their negotiation with a with SM Prime Incorporated, SM Prime Group, Mr. Chair, which is actually planning to develop the said area into a commercial zone. And looking into the possibility of SM relocating in Koronadal, the possibility and the potential of it economically, Mr. Chair, the local zoning review committee has considered the application to be meritorious, Mr. Chair. That is why they recommended for the rezoning of the said area.
I'm asking that question because this irrigation on the road beside it, I've been passing through there every now and then, and it's a narrow road. That's why I just want to make sure that if in the event this will be a commercial lot, the developers should, of course, part of their plan, a widened and a safe functioning steel irrigation. So that's why I'm asking this because once this owners, private owners, especially commercial ones, big companies like SM, they might forget there is a public road in between traversing their properties. So that's why we want to have their commitment to develop and even widen the road for public convenience also.
For sure, Mr. Chair, because that Nina Canal and the service road attached to it is not also subject to the same between the landowner and the same group. This will still remain as a NIA irrigation and service road. Now, for it to be not an eyesore in the planned commercial establishment and development they may introduce in the area. For sure, that area will also be developed to complement the development they are going to introduce. But rest assured, the city government will look into that because any plans they will have, it will have to pass through the city government for approval, Mr. Chair.
It's good. Let's make sure of that this prime holdings, whatever, maybe it's SM or some other. Since it's not final yet, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
The negotiations between SM Prime Holdings and the two and Bautista families. We will never know. It may be KCC, Ace, or Robinsons, or whatever big companies. But anyway, just to make sure that whatever development will happen in that area, still the irrigation system will be functioning because it's giving water not only that area, San Fernando Santo Niño, but it will distribute water towards GPS as well as Caloocan and other barangays that's enjoying the irrigation system. So that's what I might fear. And lastly, we're not violating here since we don't have plans yet, development of plan before we really classify this area. Is it all right? Legally, are we not violating any law when we're rezoning this area into another use without the plan, developmental plan from whoever was stakeholder in this? Wala pa tayong nilalabang na batas na
No.
we will rezone ito na di natin nakita yung plan na either through Bautista or SM.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we have followed the process based on the law as to what will be done for us to rezone or reclassify a portion of land. And in this case, we have followed the procedure. It passed through the recommendation of the LCRC. It passed also the recommendation of the institutional sector of the CDC. We have also the recommendation of the CDC. And we have also passed through the public hearing. And it is this body who is authorized by law and by the local government code to decide on the rezoning or reclassification of any lands within our territorial jurisdiction. I think we have complied with the requirements of the law and we have not breached or contradicted any law on this matter, Mr. Chair.
The chair does have any more questions to the proponent? So, I hear the motion and it was seconded. Any objection on the motion? Honorable De Villas?
Just one thing, to the main proponent. To share, the reclassification is under zoning ordinance number 6 of 2015, like this is there. But we are talking through resolution. Is it, okay, through resolution or not an ordinance?
But this is actually, this is also what is being provided for under the zoning ordinance. We can actually pass a resolution rezoning. Now, the difference of reclassification in rezoning is uh, quite distinct. Reclassification is when we reclassify an agricultural land, zone or agricultural zone into another use. Say, for example, agricultural to residential, agricultural to commercial. But when it is not an agricultural property, that we will only be using the term rezoning. No? And this is what we do rezoning. And based on zoning ordinance, a resolution uh, can already be sufficient, Mr. Chair, to do the rezoning, Mr. Chair.
Any other from the floor? Having none, so again, there was a motion and it was seconded. I ask again the floor, do you have any objection to this? Having none, the committee report is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the attached resolution be calendared for second reading in today's session under unassigned business. Second.
Any objection? Having none, this adopted report is now calendared on second reading in today's regular session under unassigned business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee on Finance, Budget and Appropriation and Ways and Means, item 3.1 to 3.2.
Let us hear again the report of Honorable Living Priest under the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Presenting to this August body the report of the Committee on Finance, Budget and Appropriation and Ways and Means. The subject of this report is the request from the local chief executive for legislative authority to enter into and sign into a contract of loan with National Housing Authority and authorizing the yearly appropriation and the city budget for the payment of the loan component thereof. Findings and observation. In recognition of the role and mandate of the local government units in taking principal role in the provision of housing services to its constituents, the city government of Koronadal is planning to establish a resettlement area for informal settler families, particularly those families who occupy danger and hazard-prone areas, such as riverbanks, landslide-prone areas, public roads and road right-of-ways, and those affected by government infrastructure projects. Second, the National Housing Authority is the sole national government agency engaged in direct housing production, mandated to meet the housing needs of the low-income and marginalized families. One of the mandates of the NHA is to provide financial and technical assistance to local government units in the development of housing sites for informal settlers families requiring relocation and resettlement. Fourth, the city government of Koronadal has already in possession and identified a suitable area for a resettlement site located in Purok Kamya, Barangay New Pangasinan. The Sangguniang Panlunsod already declared and authorized the use of the said property identified as TCP number 145-201-7001750, containing an area of 28,684 square meters as the resettlement site for informal settlers families. Six, the city has expressed its desire to seek the assistance of the NHA for the realization of this resettlement site for informal settler families and avail of the Resettlement Assistance Program for Local Government Unit or RAP-LGU in the amount of 50 million pesos and offered the use of the property, the use of and over the use of the property in Barangay New Pangasinan. Seven, as embodied in the program, 50% of the 50 million pesos to be extended to the city or 25 million pesos will be a grant. And the other 50% or 25 million pesos will be a non-interest bearing loan, which amounts will be payable in 7 years and payable annually to commence first year after the issuance of 1 year after the issuance of a certification by NHA that the project is completed. Eight, the availment of this program will surely benefit and help in the realization of the resettlement project for informal settlers families in the city of Koronadal. Nine, Sangguniang Panlunsod has already authorized the city mayor to enter into a memorandum of agreement with NHA for the availment of this program. Finally, a contract of loan shall also be entered into by the city government of Coronadal with NHA to complete the requirement of the National Housing Authority. Recommendation of the committee. The committee unanimously and favorably recommends to the Sangguniang Panlunsod to authorize the local chief executive, Honorable Leonardo Yucena, to enter into and sign into a contract of loan with National Housing Authority and authorizing the yearly appropriation and the city's budget for the payment of the loan component thereof. Further, the committee recommends to calendar the approval of the attached resolution on second reading in today's session under unassigned business. Finally, the committee recommends for the adoption of this report. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Um, the chair would like to be clarified on, is this the area donated during last administration by the Camellia Homes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This was actually the area donated by Camellia as as their compliance to the requirement of UTAM, Mr. Chairman. And the area was donated to the previous via the previous administration, and this is the subject of this resettlement area.
And does the executive department has already the plans, development plan on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. The Sangguniang Panlunsod had already approved the preliminary subdivision development plan.
And how much land area are we going to give to each families?
The area varies, Mr. Chair, but approximately this will only be around 40 to 50 square meters per lot.
So this 28,684, the only usable area would be around 70% of this.
80%, Mr. Chair.
80% of that would be around minus 5 hectares, around 22 hectares. I mean, 2,000, 22,000,
hectares more.
22,000
Square meters.
square meters. Okay. And that would accommodate how many families?
Now, the approved preliminary subdivision development plan, Mr. Chair, will show that hindi natin tinipid yung open spaces because our road network is wider to have a better dwelling or resettlement area, Mr. Chair. And there are also several open spaces which were identified. to accommodate public functions, Mr. Chair. And based on the approved preliminary subdivision development plan we have, it can accommodate more or less 400. Uh, I'm not sure of the exact figure, Mr. Chair, but there are more than 400 recipients or
Yeah,
beneficiaries.
around 440 if we give them 50 square meters each.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And I fully understand that there will be more beneficiaries than the available lot. So
Yes, Mr. Chair.
is there any now initial acts as to the proper way of selecting the beneficiaries?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Are you
And
aware of any scheme of classifying who is the best
beneficiary.
priority beneficiaries on this area?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And this is actually being undertaken by the local housing board. And based from the discussion and initial decision of the local housing board, the primary recipient of the said area, of the said resettlement area, will be those informal settlers located along the river of Buluk Creek, Mr. Chair. And what the city government did through local housing board is we requested the Centro as well as the DSWD to prepare the list of those who will be qualified beneficiary along the Gulu Creek. And what they did, Mr. Chair, is they conducted actual survey. They actually started the survey from Barangay Zone 1, going down to Barangay San Isidro. And based from the initial survey, Mr. Chair, there are around 800 plus informal settlers located along the Bulu Creek. And that cannot be accommodated by our resettlement area. So the local housing board, again, decided a mechanism to shortlist the possible beneficiary, Mr. Chair. And another criteria that a beneficiary will have to meet is they should be uh, uh, no land holdings families, and they should be identified as indigent families located along the 3-meter easement of Bulong Creek. So they were prioritized. And from there, the 800 plus beneficiary were downgraded into more or less 500 beneficiary already. But again, it will still be shortlisted by selecting where do we start to identify the beneficiaries. Are we going to start from San Isidro or are we going to start from Barangay Zone 1? So what the local housing board did is from the center. We start from the round ball towards Barangay Zone 3 towards Santa Cruz. Those beneficiaries will be surveyed again, and from that area, we will be able to identify the initial beneficiary, which will be housed in our resettlement area. And this list of beneficiaries will be submitted to the Sangguniang Panunsod for the approval of their individual agreement with the city government, Mr. Chair.
I remember during previous administration, there was another donation in compliance with requirements, uh, in compliance by the family to the city. I would like to be refreshed on that. Are you aware of it?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So that we can use it to the rest of the possible beneficiaries who cannot be
Yes.
a beneficiary on this first housing reception.
That is actually the direction, Mr. Chair, that we wanted to proceed. Uh, the first donation, Mr. Chair, the property in Barangay Pangasinan, is in compliance with your project in Barangay Carpenter Hill, which is actually the general communities. Then they have the next, Familia have the next project, which is actually the Cerretos, located also along the National Highway in Barangay Carpenter Hill. And in compliance thereof, they have Barangay San Jose. which is more or less 2 hectares also. And that was done by the previous administration, and we have already entered into an agreement during the previous administration, Sir Chair. And that is also going to be developed into a resettlement area for socialized housing. Now, however, Serento's project was cancelled by Camellia, and they changed it to Prima. And in lieu of the cancellation of Serento's project, Prima project compliance, Mr. Chair, was directed to that property in Barangay San Jose. And that will be, again, as I mentioned, Mr. Chair, that will be developed into a socialized housing, which will benefit also our informal centers. But going back to our settlement area in Barangay San Jose, it can accommodate more or less 400 recipients. However, the initial development of the city with the 50 million assistance from the NHA, it can only develop half of the project. That is only half of the project, which means to say, when this will be done, it can only accommodate more or less 200 recipients. And these 200 recipients is based from the survey that we have conducted along Bullock Creek, and we will be starting our selection of the beneficiary, starting from the center of Bullock Creek or from the round ball towards Barangay Santa Cruz. And the idea is, ang unahang titira is those families located within the 3-meter easement of Bullock Creek, and those families which are classified as indigent, and there is also a certification that that family has no land holding, so that they can qualify for an area in Barangay Pangasinan.
Whether their house in Bulukurik is big or small, they can appeal for the settlement.
For as long as they meet the requirement of the SWD as to the income of the family, Mr. Chair. We have a threshold, which means to say for example, I'm not sure of the threshold set by the SWD. Say for example, a family which has an annual income of less than 200,000. So all those families with an income of less than 200,000 can qualify to the program. But if the family has an income of more than that threshold, then they will be disqualified from the program.
I would like to clarify on your statement that there will be only 200 recipients. I thought it's 400.
Yes, 400, Mr. Chair. But initially, in the 50 million assistance from the NHA, it can only build more or less 200 units.
So we need 100 million to build 400 houses.
Yes, Mr. Chair. And the NHA has already committed to extend to us that program for the next 3 years if we need. So which means that we have a commitment from NHA that they can extend to us up to 150 million if needed. But 50% of that will be a grant.
During the previous administration, we've studied how to maximize the potential of the land to maximum settlers. And we copied the model of the in San Isidro, the one who was hit by the flash flood, the Ako, the upper Ako resettlement area where we developed. In fact, the land size there, it's not 50 square meters that we gave based on the Department of Social Work Department, national. Resettlement can be as size as 20 square meters. So that if we're going to go with that line, then probably we can accommodate at once these 800 families to have their own houses if we will reduce the size of each family as a recipient.
Well, if we will only do it on our own, Mr. Chair, surely we can do that now. In fact, during the previous administration, we have already the preliminary subdivision development plan also for Kanami Village. We term it actually economic village. And the preliminary subdivision development plan that we have approved, it can actually accommodate more or less 500 plus beneficiary. However, when we decided to avail of the program from the NHA, this RAP LGU program, where they extend certain amount and half of it will be grant, there are standards which we have to meet. And they have minimum lot size. They have also set the minimum frontage. I think the frontage here is at least 4 meters. So medyo lumaki siya ang lote. And they have also minimum standards for roads and open spaces. That is why medyo kumonte yung number of lots na na-produce natin.
Okay, don't have any further questions. The chair doesn't have any further questions. Any from the floor? Honorable President.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Just a clarification, Mr. Chairman, since I'm also a member of the committee. But in number 7, findings and observation, as embodied in the program, 50% of the 50 million pesos will be extended to the city, or 25 million pesos will be granted, and the other 50% of the 55 million pesos will be non-interest bearing loan with the amount will be payable for 7 years. May I ask, Mr. Chairman, this 25 million will be, the loan will be foresaw by the city government, and after which, who will pay for this? And the entitled beneficiary is those entitled beneficiaries is if they were avail this resettlement program, this is for free, Mr. Chairman.
No,
Just
no,
a
Mr. Chair.
clarification, Mr.
Yes, thank you for that clarification, Mr. Chair. Now, the program which the city is going to avail from NHA is RAP LGU, which will extend 50 million to the city. 50% of which, or 25 million, is grant, and 25 million will be payable by the city government to them, no interest for 7 years. Which means to say it is the obligation of the city to repay NHA. Now, we are going to allocate, that's why we have to authorize also we have to allocate our budget, no, lagyan talaga ng pondo every year for 7 years. Now, how is the city government going to recoup or recover the amount that we have invested? For sure, this project or this resettlement area is not for free. This will still be paid by the beneficiaries, but at a minimum cost. No? So initially, based on this calculation, now this is going to pass through the Sangguniang Palunsod still. No? The mechanism of recovery shall be decided by the city government through the Sangguniang Palunsod. Now, initially, based from this calculation, I think the monthly amortization of beneficiaries is around 1,000 to 1,000, less than 2,000 pesos per month. Monthly amortization. I think that's 1,000. Based from the initial calculation, 1,200 per month. Now, this amount will be taken from the beneficiary, collected from the beneficiary, soon as we will be able to recover the amount that we have invested. This will also be the same amount that we are going to start with another project. Now, based from the manifestation of the chair earlier, we have another project in Barangay San Jose. This will be the seed money which we are going to use to start this project in Barangay San Jose also. So it will be a rolling mechanism. We invest certain amount of money, we recover it also from them so that it will not be doled out. There will be conditions on the beneficiaries also. Then once we collected those money, we are going to start another project again. And soon, until we will be able to meet the housing backlog in the city of Koronadal. Now, for the information of this August body, based from our housing plan, there are more or less 4,000 housing backlog in Koronadal. So which means to say, we have to provide for more or less 4,000 dwelling unit or housing unit to our informal settlers, not only located along the hazard or danger prone areas, but we are talking about the whole of Koronadal. We need more or less 4,000 housing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, there was pending motion and it was seconded. Any objection? There having none, the motion is approved, thereby this report is adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I again move that the attached resolution be considered for second reading in today's session under unassigned business. And so moved.
Any objection? There having none, this report, this approved report is now calendared for second reading in today's session under unassigned business.
Lastly, Mr. Chair.
Yes, another report by Honorable Priest under the Committee on Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The subject of the second report of the Committee on Finance is the request from the local chief executive for a legislative authority to enter into a loan agreement with Bank of the Philippines for the purchase of various heavy equipment in the amount of 111,500,000 pesos. Findings and observations. First, last February 16, 2021, the Sangguniang Panunsod, through resolution number 13, series of 2021, has granted the local chief executive the authority to negotiate with any local banks to finance the acquisition of the city of various heavy equipment in the amount of 111,500,000 pesos. Second, upon invitation by the local chief executive to submit financial loan proposal for the above mentioned purpose, the Veterans Bank, the Development Bank of the Philippines, and the Land Bank of the Philippines submitted their proposal to the city mayor, which was then evaluated by the local finance committee. Third, after a thorough evaluation and deliberation of the submitted financial loan proposals of the aforementioned banks, conducted by the LFC or the local finance committee, and after conducting a comparative analysis, they have concluded that the proposal of Land Bank of the Philippines is more beneficial to the city government, thus recommending it for the approval of the Sangguniang Panunsod. Number 4, studying the comparative evaluation submitted by the local finance committee, the committee also agrees that the proposal of Land Bank of the Philippines is better than the other two proposals. Fifth, upon closer scrutiny of the proposal of Land Bank of the Philippines, they are offering a fixed interest rate of 4% per annum over a period of 7 years, which can be lowered up to 3.8% per annum after December of 2022, subject to the approval of the bank. Notably, however, the 50% of the interest through December 2022 government through the interest subsidy fund of the national government. Importantly also, which is also one of the beneficial provision of the Land Bank of the Philippines proposal, and also the more decisive difference in the other two proposals is that the gross receipt tax or GRT will be shouldered by Land Bank of the Philippines, which the two other banks will not be able to match. Recommendation of the committee. The committee unanimously recommends to the Sangguniang Panunsod to grant legislative authority to the local executive to enter into a loan agreement with Land Bank of the Philippines in the amount of 111,500,000 pesos for the purchase of various heavy equipment. Further, the committee recommends to consider on second reading the resolution herein attached to this report, granting authority to the Honorable City Mayor to enter into a loan agreement with Land Bank of the Philippines for the purchase of various heavy equipment in today's session under unassigned business. Finally, the committee recommends for the adoption of this report. I so move, Mr. Chair.
The chair would like to be clarified on the rates, especially the interest rates. I heard that it's around 4%. How about the DBP? How are they? What rates are they giving, as well as the veterans?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, to give this office body the comparative figures submitted by the three financing institution, namely Veterans Bank, BBP, and Land Bank of the Philippines. On the interest rate, Mr. Chair, Veterans Bank offered 4% per annum fixed for 5 years, and it will be renegotiated or repriced after 5 years. Development Bank of the Philippines also offers 4% per annum with 2% subsidy from the national government until December of 2022. However, the 4% rate is fixed for 5 years and reviewable at the end of the fifth year, which means to say there will be a potential of a different rate on the sixth and seventh year. While Land Bank of the Philippines is offering us 4% no, per annum with 2% subsidy from national government until December 2022. And after December 2022, they are lowering their rate up to 3.8% up to the end of the term, fixed, Mr. Chair. So from the interest alone, we can see that the offer of Land Bank of the Philippines is much lower compared to Veterans Bank and the Development Bank of the Philippines. But more importantly, here, Mr. Chair, Veterans Bank has no facility of the assistance or subsidy from the national government. Only DBP and Land Bank of the Philippines has access to this facility from the national government, which will shoulder 50% of the interest until December of 2022. Now, that is on the interest side, Mr. Chair. Another consideration also is from the payment of the gross receipt, which is actually based from the offer of Veterans Bank. It will be shouldered by the city government of Koronadal, which will total to 789,791 pesos 0.67 over a period of 7 years. While the Development Bank of the Philippines, they will not be charging us with the GRT until December of 2022. But beginning 2023, they will already be the GRT will be shouldered already by the city government of Koronadal, which will total to 441,655 pesos. While Land Bank of the Philippines will not charge the city government of the GRT. So those are the differences.
Yeah, so yeah, it's good. It's good. We've chosen a better interest rate and a better proposal. I just would like the chair would like to know how much, approximately how much are we going to allocate every year for the payment of this 111 million just for heavy equipment.
That, Mr. Chair, that would be around 3.9 million per quarter. So more or less, that will be around 15 million annually for the city government of Koronadal.
15 million annual payment
Yes,
for the next 7 years, right?
yes, Mr. Chair.
More or less times 7. Okay,
15 to 16 million.
15 to 16 million for 7 years. And that would include the lower rate at 3.8, more or
Yes,
less.
that would be the rate also already.
What do you mean by 50% of the interest will be paid by national government?
That is actually one of the program of the national government, where government loans acquired by the local government unit will be subsidized by the national government. 50% of the interest rate charged to the local government unit for any loan until December of 2022 will be shouldered by the national government. Which means to say, if they charge us with 4%, the national government will shoulder 2% of that only up to December of 2022 because the program will end on December of 2022.
Supposing we have the materialization of this loan within this year, and the payment would be
for 1.5 year, more or less. Say, for example,
Since we're paying quarterly,
yes, Mr. Chair.
so around 6 quarters.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So that would be, if we calculate it up to 6 quarters, Mr. Chair, that would be around 3.2 million savings.
And we understand coupled with this loan proposal was the loan to time market.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. And
And any development on that?
the committee has yet to conduct public hearings on this issue, Mr. Chair.
So we prioritize this heavy equipment before the public market.
Well, considering that the issue of public market is quite comprehensive, we have to conduct public hearings before we can decide. While this one, it would be just actually a purchase of heavy equipment, and there will be no public hearings needed, Mr. Chair. But rest assured, the issue of the public market will be consulted to the different sectors, Mr. Chair, before the Sangguniang will decide on the issue.
Okay, the chair doesn't have any further questions. Any other on the floor? Having none, we go back. Yes, Honorable Maylene de Guzman. Let's go.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I would like to clarify about the total loan we would apply. It's 111 million, right, Mr. Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
So if the land bank is offering 4% fixed rate per annum, so the interest rate for 1 year, it's approximately 4 million, 4.4 million.
Now, that will be depreciating. The interest rate will be depreciating as we pay also the principal. So which means to say, on the first year, it will be higher, but in the end, it will be smaller.
Okay. And
So it's
also,
not, the interest rate is not fixed.
okay, Mr. Chair. Follow-up question, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned earlier, we will be paying like 15 million to 16 million per quarter, right?
Annual.
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 That is included the interest rate.
Yes, Mr. Chair, based on the proposed amortization schedule of Land Bank of the Philippines, yes, Mr. Chairman.
Because, Mr. Chair, if we will be paying 15 million per year, like for 7 years, the total is 100 million. So how come the amount we will be going to loan is less than we will be paying to them?
Now, the principal, Mr. Chairman, is 3.9 million equally divided into 7 years. That's 3.9 million. While the interest rate is actually is depreciating depending based as we actually mature in our contract with our loan, Mr. Chair. So which means to say, Mr. Chair, like for example, on our first year, our interest rate is 1,124. However, in the latter part of our contract, that would be around 79 million. And we will be in total paying Land Bank of the Philippines from our loan of 111,500,000 pesos. We will be paying Land Bank of the Philippines of more or less 127,962,287 pesos, 0.68 centavos. So the total interest that we will be charged of based from our loan of 111,500,000 will be around 16,462,000 pesos total interest.
Okay, okay, noted, Mr. Chair. But as you said, that's 127 million. So if you will divide that one for 7 years, so approximately we will be paying the land bank for 18 million instead of 15 or 16.
For
It's 18 million.
yeah, because the amount actually varies as we go along. Now, what I mentioned earlier of 3.9 million quarterly is the principal. Now we add up the interest. We have a different column here of interest now, which will actually be varying as we mature in our contract. Now the total amount would be 127 billion. So that will be the total amount of money that we are going to pay Land Bank of the Philippines. Now, we deduct the principal of 111,500,000, then the total interest will be 16,462,000, and we deduct the 3,189,000 subsidy from the national government. Then the interest of the city government will only be around 13,200,000 pesos.
Okay, Mr. Chair.
Any other? Hearing none, we go back to the motion. And it was actually seconded. Any objection? There having none, the committee report is hereby adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I therefore move that the attached resolution also be calendared for second reading.
It's seconded, and any objection? Having none, the same report is now calendared to for second reading under assigned business for today's session.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Edwin Bruce.
Item 4, committee applications, finance, and technology, culture, and arts.
Mr. Chair, I move to refer the consideration of this report until the next session, considering that the main proposal is not approved.
Any objection? Having none, the report will be scheduled calendared on next regular session.
Privileged are the Honorable Francis Rossi Dennis to read his privilege speech.
Let us hear the message of Honorable Francis Ross, the Dennis.
To our presiding officer, Honorable City Vice Mayor Dr. Peter B. Miguel, and to my fellow members of the Sangguniang Pangungsod, as well as to the people inside this session hall, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am standing here in front of you, taking this opportunity to render a privileged speech as a result of my 2 weeks long and self-isolation. For the past weeks, there have been incidents and reports of various crimes and lawlessness that have gained the attentions not only of this representation, but all the officials of the city. Much as we'd like to consider these incidents as isolated cases, it has brought forth a sense of alarm to the constituents of the city, mostly the civilians. In the light of the shooting of 3 policemen resulting in the death of a police officer Espero, not to mention the drug-related operations and other incidents in the wee hours of the morning happening in the local pubs and along national highways. A blatant disregard was curfew hours being imposed to lessen, if not at all eliminate, the spread of the COVID virus amidst this pandemic. Just this morning, another accident left 1 injured and 1 dead, abandoned by the others who participated in a drug race. This representation, as a member of the Sangguniang Pangungsod and the chairperson of the Legislative Committee on Public Order and Safety, cannot just turn blind and deaf to this alarming scenario. The community quarantine being implemented by the city government, although may not necessarily be for the purpose of stopping crimes, in a way is a huge factor that could at least stall those seeking to disturb the peace and order in the city. However, it somehow appears that these perpetrators do not even fear the law, nor the authorities serving as a guardian of the law. If a member of the police force who are supposed to protect the people from any threat has been the target of crimes themselves in a broad daylight, how can an ordinary citizen even be spared from posing danger? This is a question that must be addressed promptly in a specific and clear action. This representation feels that there is a need for the Sangguniang to be appraised of the current peace and order situation of the city. Hence, I move for an executive session together with the City of Koronadal Chief of Police Sir Joe Feliciason after the adjournment of today's regular session of the Sangguniang for this purpose. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Before going to that, the chair would like to be clarified on the data. For the past weeks, aside from the death this morning,
Just due to drug racing.
drug racing, are you aware also of the one happened stoning, killing of one employee of a mall by just an unidentified group or persons also?
That is way back February, Mr. Chair.
That's way back in February. It's not in this month of March. So we're just saying that your report or your speech, well, your data was just for this March alone, not including those February incidents.
We are also talking about the first quarter of the year, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And you mean the implementation of quarantine is not being pursued religiously?
We are looking forward for a better implementation of curfew, Mr. Chair.
The curfew at least,
Yes, Mr. Chair.
and the quarantine.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
And you think that if the quarantine is being implemented well, fully, it would help curb at least or deter crimes also.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We can limit the personnel for people roaming around the city, Mr. Chair.
So you're saying that we are not implementing our curfew in these days lately.
We are implementing, Mr. Chair, but we need to implement it stricter, Mr. Chair.
Stricter. Do we have records on how much apprehensions every day by our PNP personnel as far as curfew is concerned?
For curfew, Mr. Chair, we have around at least 500. For mine, it's around 200, Mr. Chair. Starting of January
It's
to
just like January. And even with that, you think there's still the figure is not much. There will be some violations here and there.
yes, Mr. Chair. Because if you are talking about the curfew under the executive order of the mayor, it only is included for those personnel who are non-working or personnel that are not working at night, Mr. Chair. Because we have ordinance, that is the curfew ordinance for the city government of Koronadal, 11 to 5. But we are right now following the executive order that is 10 to 5 p.m. 10 a.m.
What
5 a.m.
what can you say about these establishments now still open at around 11 or 12 midnight up to wee hours in the morning? They observe there are still establishments open. Is that allowed?
That's why, Mr. Chair, that is the line of intention of my privilege speech to talk to our chief of police so that we can be clear and we can be informed of what are happening in the city and government of Coronadal or city as a police.
Thank you so much for the clarification, Honorable Francis Rose de Delis. I have no more further clarification. So there's a motion from the floor by Honorable Francis Rose de Delis to have a session, executive session with our chief of police after the adjournment into this regular session. Any second to the motion?
Second.
Any objection? There having none. Motion is approved. After the regular session, there will be an executive session with City of Koronadal Chief of Police, Sir Joe Felix Jasso.
Second reading and assembly business, item 1.1. A resolution approving the request of the two and Bautista families for the rezoning of their last located Silangan, Barangay Santo Niño, and the National Highway which are classified within residential zone to commercial use.
Honorable Laboris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. uh, jointly with the members of the Committee on Housing and Land Use, Mr. Chair, I move for the approval of a resolution approving the request of the Chu and Bautista families for the rezoning of their lots located at Purok Silangan, Barangay Santo Niño, along the National Highway, which are classified within the residential zone into a commercial use, Mr. Chair. I so move, Mr. Chair.
Second. In objection? There having none, motion is approved. The rezoning of Bautista and Chu family from residential to commercial use.
Item 1.2, resolution authorizing the local chief executive, Honorable Lord Uyena, in representation of the city government of Koronadal, to enter into a contract of loan with national housing authorities in the amount of 25 million pesos and authorizing the yearly appropriations in the city's budget for the payment of the said loan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On unanimous sponsorship, Mr. Chair, by all the members of this august body, I move for the approval of a resolution authorizing the local chief executive, Honorable Leonardo U. Ojeda, in representation of the city government of Coronadal, to enter into a contract of loan with the National Housing Authority in the amount of 25 million pesos and authorizing the yearly appropriations in the city's budget for the payment of the said loan. I so move, Mr. Chair.
In objection? Yes, Honorable Bascon.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask, um, once we made the contract of loan with the National Housing Authority, do you have an idea, Mr. Chair, when they will commence the said program or project? Is there any tentative dates?
Yes, Mr. Chair. There are two components of the project. First is the land development, which will be shouldered by the city government of Coronadal. We have already appropriated 11 million for the land development, which will cover land embankment, provision of road, and provision of drainage. And this project actually has already started. It has already commenced. I think that was 2 weeks ago. The project or the area is already being developed. Now, the second component of the project is the housing construction. Now, housing construction will be financed by this 50 million pesos from the National Housing Authority. And housing construction will commence soon after the land development will be completed. And the time frame supposedly for land development is around 6 months. So right after the completion, say for example within 6 months, then the housing construction will already commence, which presumably will start by the last quarter of this year.
Any other questions, clarifications from the floor? Yes, Honorable Aguirre.
What's the area of Pirla?
That is around 50 square meter to 60, but there are other area located along the corners, no? Which are actually 80 square meters. But on the average, that will be around 50 to 60 square meters.
Do you have any idea kung magkano ba ang ibabayad ng mga low income family sa city government of that land?
So that will be up to this body who is going to decide as to how much they are going to pay us. But of course, the proposal will come from the executive through the local housing board. Now, what I can share initially is in our discussion in the local housing board, that would be around 1,200 pesos, not more than, I think we were able to discuss not more than 1,000, around 2,000, taas masyado. We are trying to lower it down. Now, there are computation which will initially I can tell you even up to 800 pesos kinailangan. Pero that will be up to the city government to decide, and that will be the Sangguniang Panunsod. All the figures will be laid down And we will look into how much will be, what will be the time frame for our ROI. Then it's us who is going to decide on the matter. But that would be a very minimum amount, no? Which I think the informal sector families can surely afford, Mr. Chair.
Any other from the floor? Having none, again, there's a motion for the approval for second and final reading of this authority for the local chief executive to enter into contract with the National Housing Authority. Are there any objections? Having none, motion is hereby approved.
Item 1.3, resolution authorizing the local chief executive Honorable Yordi Ulena to enter into a loan agreement with Bank of the Philippines in the amount of 111,500,000 pesos for the purchase of various heavy equipment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, on unanimous sponsorship, Mr. Chair, by all the members of this August body, I move for the passage of a resolution authorizing the local chief executive, Honorable Leonardo Yuhena, to enter into a loan agreement with Bank of the Philippines in the amount of 111 million pesos, 11,500,000 pesos for the purchase of various heavy equipment. On unanimous sponsorship, Mr. Chair. I so move.
Any objection? There having none, motion is approved.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, there being no other matters, Mr. Chair, I move for the adjournment.
Any objection? There having none, our session for today March 23, is hereby adjourned. Thank you so much for your presence. But don't leave the hall yet, since we'll have an executive session with our police chief, in the person of Sir Jope Sheson. So mga kanami, adjourn na po yung session namin for today. Pero po, hindi pa po tapos ang pulong-pulong dahil in a while, we'll have a session with our chief of police. Malalaman natin kung anong nangyari sa syudad, bakit maraming patayan, no? Bakit maraming na aksidente, bakit maraming violation ng ating curfew, bakit hindi napapagana ang ating strict quarantine measures. So ito sanga-sanga kasi. Pag maganda ang curfew, maganda ang quarantine, medyo ma-epekto rin yan sa peace and order. Indirectly or directly meron. Dahil nalilimit yung movement ng tao. So yun po ang contention ng privilege speech po ng ating kagalang-galang na konsihal, Honorable Francis Ross Dedeles. That's why minarapat po natin na nandito ngayon ang ating chief of police. Ha? Okay, so tanungin natin kung anong mga nangyayari. At least malinawagan tayo. At kung ano ang mga hakbang para ito hindi na mangyayari muli. No? At sana'y wala nang patayan. Alam niyo naman po. Pro-life tayo at hindi maganda kung merong death, no? Especially murders and all by unresolved cases, by unidentified personalities na lumalabas ang case unsolved. It gives an uncomfortable feeling dito sa society, no? At yun ang tanong doon po sa privilege speech po ng ating councilor Dedeles, kung mayroong pulis na napapaslang on broad daylight
no? At inambush, di man lang isa kundi tatlo. Eh di, paano pa makakasiguro yung taong bayan na sila po ay safe din. So it goes the same if our law enforcers are threatened, how much more to the common people? So yan po ang tanong natin ngayon. So maliwanag na kailangan may tanong natin ito. Okay? Magtatanong tayo kay Chief, anong gagawin? Okay? Kung gusto kayo dyan, magtanong din. Ha? Eh di, message nyo lang ako. Pero this session it will not be live anymore kasi executive session. Pero I'm sure out of this executive session, we can craft measures so that we can strengthen our security measures also. So yun po ang kagandahan nito. No? Pagkatapos itong pulong-pulong, may kaakibat to na action. Yun ang kagandahan pag inimbita natin yung mga otoridad. Okay, mga kanami. So hanggang dito na lang ako. Salamat sa pagsubaybay, salamat sa papanonood. At gusto mag-shoutout dyan, pwede naman kayong mag-message ngayon. Shoutout natin para bago tayo magtapos.
sila sa parap sir eh. May makilala sila din sa Koronadal man, manifesto na sila. Handa mag-group po sa to sir, na PCC na mag-day. So nagkitay lang sila sa convenience store, nagtulukay. Yung naghambal na isa na dahil tulok mo. Ito na officer sir, nanawag man yung yung pag-grupo. Pagkabot istundan sila sir, isang nakamotor. Kaya mo to sir, kahit yung lapos sir sa likod. Dahil yung bidang sir, pangay.
Okay, mga kanami. Tapos na po ang session. So, thank you so much for watching. Okay? At I would say bye-bye for now. Salamat, salamat, salamat po. Alright. Hindi ko alam paano patayin. Ito mahirap. Hindi ako techie. I'm confused. And what? Yeah. Okay. So,
Ilan sila sir yun? Pagbisita. Ang corporate meron daw alas 10, and then alas 10 curfew sa non-workers. Sir, kay worker man, mga sa kabluhan, mag-agil